Wow. How's everybody today? Okay, what is that for? I'm serious. Okay then. No idea what I would do with that. What anybody would do with that.
Somewhere to put your hands.
College dorm.
Starbucks.
Yeah, right. Sacramento. California. That's the way we like it. Born and raised, California. So, thank you all for coming to my humble little Q&A. Apparently everybody's in line out there. Doesn't care about this room. Oh wait, we've got 2 converts. 3. Come on in. So, how's everybody?
Good.
Good. I am thrilled to be here. I have sort of some memories of coming to Sacramento many, many years ago with my cousin, actually, who happens to be in the back row there, my cousin Mike. He lives here on the outskirts of Sacramento, so this is a double pleasure for me. I get to visit with some family. So got to do that last night. And here I am. This is a pretty good little crowd at this nice little, what is this, anime comic book convention? What would we call it?
I think it's a little bit of everything for everybody.
Yeah, kind of like me. I'm sort of confused. I'm like, horror, sci-fi, animation. So, anyway, the way I usually do this is, open it up. You've got any questions? I am more than happy to answer them. We have an eager student right here, ready to go. So fire away.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah, my name's Robert, and my question is, what do you think of the Re-Animator theater play? What's going on?
What do I think of Re-Animator the musical?
Musical.
Yeah, kind of a surreal experience for me. Very weird because I did the movie, and then all these years later, they're sort of playing on that. It's very clever. I saw it when it opened. It's very clever and a lot of fun. People really seem to enjoy it. But for me, it's really weird because it's strange to see someone attempting an imitation of you. It really is. And the tone of the play is not really like the movie at all. I like to think that the movie, even though it has humor in it, it plays itself seriously. I mean, there are really some serious moments, some touching moments in that movie, and the musical is for laughs, yucks, and shock, and that's fine. But in tone, it's sort of a comparing apples and oranges for me. So I know people enjoy it, but I'm in a unique situation there. So it's out there, and so. If you get a chance to see it, go ahead, do it. Freddie, yeah.
Dante, actually, but thanks.
Oh, come on. You can imagine why I was confused. Yeah, okay, good.
My question is, as an actor, I'm always curious as to, when I see someone who's very successful, obviously what they do, what tips might you have for other actors marketing yourself, getting anywhere in the business? What advice might you have?
That's a good question. Anybody here? He asked basically, as an actor, what tips could you suggest to a aspiring actor? I'm probably not the best person to ask that, frankly, because I'm not a very good self-promoter. I don't excel at that. Even though I'm on Facebook and I have a Facebook page, I can't find myself. I can't yet step over the line into tweeting, you know. I just find it really hard to believe that someone would be interested in which brand of butter that I'm buying, or, oh, I like that movie. You know, I guess also paradoxically, I'm kind of private. And so constantly putting out there publicly the things that I don't think I want to put out there publicly is really a push for me. So there's a real sort of battle in me about keeping things, you know, within my fortress and spewing it out there for everyone to know. So, but having said that, I would say that there are still things that are tried and true, no matter what you choose to do for your career, and that is, if you choose something that you truly love in your heart, that you devote yourself to because you can't not do anything else, then you know what? When you're first starting out, you're willing to do it for nothing. Money is not and fame is not the reason. It's because you love it, and that's where I started from. I innocently out of high school, not really having a deep realization of really the dedication that it took. You know, I just kind of went to college and said, oh, I want to do that, so I'll see what that entails. And then you begin to realize really the dedication and the commitment that it takes. I remember someone saying a long time ago, acting is not a career, it's a lifestyle.
Yes.
You really have to embrace it and be willing to do it, not for those superficial, big, sort of famous and rich ideas. That should be the gravy at the end. You do it because you love it. And so that's really sort of where I came from. And when I started making money doing it, it was really sort of a surprise. Like, really? I mean, you're going to pay me?
Yeah, it feels really darn good getting paid.
It feels really good when getting paid for it. But, you know, 9 times out of 10 or 9.5 times out of 10, that doesn't happen at the beginning of your career. So you put in the hard work and the due diligence and learn the craft. A lot of people, you know, one of the reasons why LA is so hard is so many people have stars in their eyes and they pack up the Jetta or the Volkswagen or the Corolla or whatever car, and you arrive in LA and they go, I'm an actor. Really? Well, but, you know, you didn't train, you didn't make the sacrifices. You're just saying that because you want it to be, but that you have to put in the hard work. You can't be a carpenter without learning. You can't be an electrician without learning, and an actor is a craftsman. So my suggestion to you is follow your bliss. You know, do what comes along, and keep working hard and meet people. I pride myself on being able to have repeat business, like work with somebody and then they go, wow, that was a good experience. I'd like to work with him again next time I make another movie. You know, that kind of thing. It's good.
Yeah, so in essence, what you do is Stuart Gordon.
And Stuart, bless him, every once in a while you find someone who is truly gets it and is loyal to you and wants to keep incorporating you into their vision. So that's what you do. It's not rocket science, but it is a lot of sacrifice. Yes.
Out of all the films you've ever done, what has been the best and worst experience in those films?
Out of all the movies I've done, which is the best and which is the worst experience? Well, there's been a lot of bests. I mean, for different reasons. I was saying to someone earlier that I remember movies not so much how they turned out, but like sometimes where they were shot. I mean, some movies that really didn't really hold up, but hey, I spent 6 weeks in Rome. Not too bad. Or Barcelona, or I've seen the world because of this. I've been to Australia and New Zealand and Romania and Bulgaria and Belgium and Korea and Philippines and Taiwan, and I have seen the world because of what I chose to do as a profession. Making movies is really hard. Re-Animator sort of spoiled me. It was very early in my career, and so many happy accidents came into play to make it be the sort of iconic cult thing that it is. Good editing. The music is totally just right. Great casting. The special effects. It's just. I just thought, oh yeah, that's how you make movies, and then you start getting into other projects and you realize that it's not always that smooth and that lucky. It's hard. It's a collaborative art, and therefore you're at the mercy. There's a saying that a chain is as strong as its weakest link. You can have a really strong chain, but if one thing is flawed, then you don't have a chain that's doing its job. So that's sort of how making a film is. You can have everything fall into place, and then your editor sucks, or you get the music, which is usually at the very end, and it's like, whoops, that's bad. There's just so many things at play. You can cast an actor, and you realize on the first day you're in trouble. Or a weekend you realize you're in trouble. Whatever. It's really hard things to pull out of and change your mind on once you've committed to them. So I would say I didn't realize at the time that Re-Animator would be Re-Animator with a capital R. I thought it would be a small little movie that I would get some experience in front of a camera and nobody will see it. Yeah. Shows you what I know, which is absolutely nothing. But my all-time favorite experiences were, I'd have to say Re-Animator, simply because it was so much fun to... My daughter will have to wait. Frighteners. Simply because I got to work with the great Peter Jackson, and I cherish that so much. But also because I got to shoot it in Wellington, New Zealand. Fabulous city and a wonderful country, and people are great, and so I relish all those wonderful memories. And then there are those movies that are a train wreck, and I really sort of hesitate to get into it too much, but there is one particular movie that I really can't say too much about it because I don't want to offend anybody, but it was one of the worst experiences I've ever been on. I was in another country, and nobody knew what they were doing, and there were communication breakdowns and chaos, and none of the effects worked, and the director was out of his mind, and one of the actors fell off the wagon and was absolutely had to be replaced because they wound up in the hospital. I mean, it was... I want to make a movie about that. That's what I want. Because that was an adventure. But at the time, I wasn't having too much fun because it was like all these things, when you're in another land and things aren't kind of going very well, you just want to go home. I want to go home. And then every day it was another piece of nonsense. And it was like, I'm going to be here another week or two. or 3. So, but looking back on it, it was hilarious. Actually. But at the time, it wasn't too funny. So, yeah, it can go bad real fast, and it's not very fun. So, but for the most part, you know, hey, man, it's a great gig to be an actor in film. It really is. Yes.
Characters that played in the Star Trek franchise.
Of the characters I played in the Star Trek franchise,
Yeah, way in, front, and front. Which one did you enjoy playing most?
which one of my 3 characters that I recurred did I enjoy the most? I do get this question a lot, and I answer it the same way. Do you have children, sir?
They're grown up.
Yeah, but do you have children?
Yes.
How many?
2.
Which is your favorite? And that's the way I feel. They're all my favorite. What I love the most is the difference between them. Because if I didn't have the difference, then they wouldn't have cast me in them. You know, it would have been the same thing. And fortunately, you know, they trusted me to bring something completely different to it, and that is what I hold close. Is that even people on the crew, I would finish for the day, and I would walk on set out of makeup, and I'd go, "Hey, man, you know, thanks for today," and they'd go, "Who are you?" And some of that is the makeup, but then the next week I would be in a different makeup and do the same thing, and the same guy would go, "And you are..." So that's what I cherish most, is that I can hide in there and be completely different and no one knows, which is sort of a dichotomy with what an actor wants.
Yes.
Kind of like, "Oh, it's you again," but really I'm hiding. So, yes.
Yes, along those lines, there were like 9 way-in clothes, is that right?
9 Wayuns? Who's counting?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, sure.
So I know. I mean, like I noticed subtle differences with each clone. So, like, what were some of the choices you made as an actor to make them different?
Well, quite honestly, I tried not to make them different, because there was only one that was different.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the defective one.
Right.
But the rest I tried to be exactly the same as the one who just died. And then the new one walks in the door, because the idea was that they've come to the point where there's no lapse in anything, any experience that the old one had. It's right there. So I tried to be, you know, the same. It sounds to me like maybe I wasn't succeeding all that much every once in a
It was
while.
pretty good, but just like very subtle.
Just subtle little stuff. Yeah. So, yeah, buddy. Castle Freak. Castle Freak. Castle Freak was a intense experience for me. Although it was really lovely too. We shot it in an actual castle in Italy, halfway between Rome and Florence in Tuscany. And it was glorious to spend, 4 or 5 weeks in a Italian village. And oh yeah, they make wine there. Oh yeah, right. And the food. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, actually. So it was really great. But the work was very intense, and mostly because the emotional shit that I had to go through with the character was really intense for me. So it takes a lot of focus to sort of keep your equilibrium and consistent throughout a 4-week shoot. So, but I take that as a good challenge, not a bad one. So, yeah, I'm not real good actually myself with all the gore. And when you watch a movie, a gory movie, and there's blood for spurting blood for 15 seconds, I get to look at that shit all day. From every angle, And so, at that point, you're kind of like, okay, are we done with the blood now? So, but I actually like the psychological stuff about that movie. The fact that the creature, the freak, is my even more than my half brother. And he's a 3/4 brother because our fathers were the same and our mothers were sisters. And so we're almost so in a mythical storytelling way. If you step back, it's almost like we're the yin and yang of the same person. So I just love that at the end of that movie, the only way that I can save my family is taking him with me off the roof to our death. That's I just think storytelling wise and that's really a powerful sort of image, that the only way you can save is destroy. So yeah.
Can you share some stories about David Gale and Barbara?
David Gale, really a wonderful actor. I remember the first time I met him was my callback for Re-Animator. Up until then, I bullshitted my way through the audition, by the way. I went in and Stuart Gordon said, this is based on H.P. Lovecraft, by the way, and I went, oh, yeah. I can look that up when I get home. Because I wasn't really all that aware of H.P. Lovecraft at that point. Fortunately, Stuart didn't care about that. And so then when I was called back, I had to do the lab scene with David. So it was his callback and it was my callback and it was our scene together. Which is really weird because we didn't get to rehearse. We just kind of walked in and go, hi, how are you? Okay, let's read. But fortunately, we both got the part. And he was just fabulous to work with. The poor guy, I really felt for him because, once again, on screen, his head is in that pan of blood for a close-up for 30 seconds. Dude, he was in that thing, in that contraption, sitting underneath the table with his head in a hole in the table, up into the pan for frickin' hours, And the poor guy was a smoker, and so I do remember, You good? Yeah, good. Put that out. Can I put that out? Okay, good. We'll put it out. But he was a wonderful guy, and his career was cut way too short. I don't know if any of you know how he passed, but he basically was understudying another well-known actor in a play, and that well-known actor, who I also knew, weirdly, went off to do a TV gig, and so David went on. And while he was on stage, he had a heart attack. And they took him to the hospital, and it was a massive heart attack. And so they gave him a heart transplant. And he went through the heart transplant, and on the day that he was to be released from the hospital, they went into his room and he collapsed on the floor. So, that's pretty tragic, pretty sad. And I miss him. He was a good-hearted guy, and he was very genuine. So. Barbara's still lovely and still around. She lives up in the Bay Area, and she goes to conventions. I see her. Huh? I should have brought her. Yeah, she. Dan. He should have brought her. Dan should have brought her. You're right. Maybe next year. She's lovely and. Really a sweetheart, and no one ever asks about Bruce Abbott, but I'm here to tell you he's sort of the unsung hero of Re-Animator. I mean, if I always think of it I always say that if this were a quartet, Herbert West is the violin solo, and Dan is the cello underneath, just kind of, or if I'm a lead guitarist, he's the bass line that rocks and gives me a foundation. And he really, really did do that all the way through that movie, to the point where no one really appreciates. I mean, I can't say we're doing it if someone says, no, yes, no, yes. You know, so, I mean, there's a counterpoint there that Herbert West wouldn't be Herbert West if he didn't have Dan saying, Herbert, you can't. So, don't forget Bruce Abbott. Yes.
Do you have any fun stories or favorite experiences in the studio for Transformers Prime?
We have a lot of stories about Transformers Prime. We have a great time in there. We kind of record in a horseshoe of microphones with stands and lights all the way around, and it can get pretty good in there. There are some very funny people in there. I'm not one of them. I just laugh at their shit. But there are some great, and not only are they funny in terms of really fast with one-liners, but also some of these guys are primo sound effects guys. And all of a sudden you'll be like, what's wrong with is the air conditioning squeaking or? Oh, it's you. You're doing that. You know, Frank Welker is over there just doing anybody know who Frank Welker is? Okay. Iconic. And that guy can make more noises and more effects and more impersonations of people than you can shake a stick at. I mean, he is absolutely amazing, and I don't know how anybody does that. And so we had a wonderful time in there. I have nothing but belly laughs when I go in there. It's never stuffy. It's never serious. It's really, really generous room, and nobody gets out alive. Okay. Yes. Is the Re-Animator series still continuing? Well, I know that Brian Usna, who's the producer and owns the film rights, is always trying to make another iteration of the movie, but it's difficult. With the economic downturn of 4 or 5 years ago, it really hit our business very hard, especially for movies like Re-Animator, because if there ever is another sequel for something like that, typically it's not from a studio. It's going to be from private investors. Well, where did the private investors go? They ran away. So it really hit our business hard. So in our movie business now, it's either huge blockbuster monsters, just huge movies that are ridiculous budgets, or little stupid stuff, really, really cheap, cheaper than you really ever want them to be. And the middle went away. Hopefully it'll come back, but I suspect in some ways it is, but we all just kind of really saw a big difference. So in trying to get another sequel of Re-Animator together, it's really hard to find somebody who can step up and go, yeah, I'll finance that, because everybody is playing it safe, real safe. I suspect what will happen is at some point Brian will probably decide to simply sell the rights to some studio or huge producer, and I'll be recast, and it'll be a young, new reboot, just like every other thing that's come along, and it'll suck. And that's the way it is. Yes, Marcus. Marcus, did you raise your hand? Oh, maybe it's the guy in front of you. It's the guy in front of you. Okay, sorry.
Yes, your portrayal of the Question on Justice League Unlimited is one of my favorite characters ever on television. And I was curious, what influences went into the role, and how many of the lines went into
None of the lines were improvised. None of the lines are ever improvised. It's on a page in front of you. It's not memorized. You walk in. You do get to look at it via email. You get the script, so you can kind of study it a little bit. But it's kind of read and emote right there on the fly. A lot of these, none of these things that I've ever done in animation, it's too technical for you to like wing it. And the writers are real sticklers about what they write. So you do it until you get what's on the page, the way it's written. Thank you for saying that about the question. I got the part just because my agents called me one day. See, here's the thing. In LA, you have a theatrical film and television agent. If you do commercials, you have a commercial agent. If you do voiceover work, you have a voiceover agent. Well, I didn't have a voiceover agent. So somehow somebody, bless them, in that writing and producing crew said, let's get Jeff Combs for the question. Go figure. So they called my theatrical agent and said, would Jeff like to do this? So that's really fairly rare, and I was really honored for that to happen. Since then, I really like the question because he's very film noir, with the fedora and the hat and the mystery and the shadow and the ambiguity. I really could sort of hook into that, and I found that really energizing for me. But anyway, since then I've gotten, 3-4 years ago, I finally decided, well, maybe I should get a voiceover agent. And I'm glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't have done Transformers Prime. Because, yes.
Big Transformers fan.
Thank you.
Best Ratchet ever, by the way.
Thank you.
And
I have to tell you, though, that when I went in an audition for Transformers for Ratchet, I really had no frame of reference. And I suppose I could have gone and, researched and who did the role before and what did they do, and maybe that'll tell me what I need, what they're looking for. I didn't do any of that. I just made a decision. Look, I'm going to read this stuff and I'm going to do it the way I would do it. And if they get it, then good. If they don't, then I can't be what they want. I can only be what I want to do with it. So, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Okay.
Ratchet was kind of a lame character in the other series.
Kind of a lame character.
Yeah, you actually brought the character out.
Well, thank you, but I would also say the writers kind of brought the character out, because I'm not making that stuff up. The tone and the attitude is something that they were trying to go for. I remember when I went to my callback, they said he's kind of a combination between Scotty and Bones. And I went, okay, I get that. Okay, what name? No, that wouldn't work. Kind of the crotchety, the lovable crotchety uncle that's, got a heart of gold but kind of a crusty exterior. That's sort of the way I sort of approached it, and it kind of clicked. Everybody really, hopefully, liked it. Now Marcus raises his hand.
Can you talk about some of your experiences on the 4400?
The 4400. It's a series that I did. Once again, when you say 4400, the first thing that pops into my head is cool. Lots of trips to Vancouver, because that's where it was shot, and I love Vancouver. Great city, great people. And I owe a debt of gratitude to Ira Stephen Bear for that. Ira Stephen Bear was the executive producer, head writer for Deep Space Nine. I wouldn't have done any, or maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Deep Space Nine if not for Ira Stephen Bear saying, that guy, I want him. I really wouldn't. And the same can be said for the 4400. That show had been cast. It was shooting, and I get a call from Ira, and he says, "Listen, you're going to be getting a call from your agents. I want you to do this character. I want you to understand it. In the first episode, you don't say a word." I was like, "What?" "No, you're a guy in a mental institution, but I have plans." And I trust Ira implicitly, and it turned into a lovely arc and a really interesting character, and kind of a May-autumn sort of romance with Summer Glau in the show. So, in terms of our characters being kind of kindred spirits. So, some really interesting things that went on in that show. So, great writing. Ira Stephen Bear. Yeah, Jason.
Hi. Speaking to your animated work, I thought you did a really good Scarecrow in Batman.
Thank you.
Just
Thank you.
And well, you're mostly known for your work in the horror genre, as you're telling me. I just thought it kind of strange that you'd be here for the North Comic-Con and not the horror con that was going on last couple days.
Jason's saying it was kind of strange that I would be here today as opposed to the last 2 days at the horror con.
Yeah, I was just wondering if they asked you to be at the horror con, or did they reach out to you and it was a scheduling thing, or they just asked you to come.
Right. He's just wondering if, dude, why weren't you here yesterday? I never really experienced this before, but apparently, there was 2 days of horror and then this day, and I didn't even know that. They just kind of invited me for today. And then actually yesterday, when they picked me up at the airport, they said, if you want, this was like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you want, you can kind of go over there and, sit down and sign autographs. And I went, no. No. So I didn't even know what was going on. Not even a clue. So.
Also, want to ask you, I guess with the current trend of Hollywood remakes, the onslaught really.
The onslaught of remakes, yeah.
What your thoughts would have been on a Re-Animator possible reboot? But I guess you gave your.
I'm helpless. All I can be is an observer to whatever it would be. I would bet that it would probably be filled with CGI splatterings everywhere. I mean, part of the charm of the original Re-Animator was that there's none of that. It's one of the reasons why it kind of holds up, is that all of the tricks, the visual tricks in that movie are with editing and practicals that are on stage, on set at the time, and there's absolutely no computer-generated falderall at all. I mean, you just don't, there's none there. Because it was pre all of that. So if it does get rebooted, the first thing any new hot young director is going to do is I'm going to incorporate all kinds of visual razzle-dazzle with all kinds of, get those computers ready, because here we go. And I think that some of the charm will be lost with that. It's very difficult. The tone of Re-Animator, it's a real tricky line. You don't want to get too dark, and you don't want to get too light, and you want to, one of the best things that Stewart did was made us take it seriously. This is not a funny movie. One of the first things he did was he had Bruce and I go down to the LA morgue. They had us go down to the LA morgue, and I'm going, I don't want to go to the morgue. What am I going to the morgue for? Come on. Oh, and I go down there and I realized very soon why. Because the dead are fucking dead. And so the idea that you could bring that back is impossible. And that really created, for me, the absolute magic and the wonder of being able to do it. So I had a real concrete frame of reference of how amazing it was to actually come up with something that you would inject into a dead, hopefully fresh body, and it would come back to life. Not quite all the way, but working on it. Yeah.
In Frighteners, your character in that is just the most bizarre, wonderful character.
Yep.
Is that all just from the writer? How much did you bring to that? Where was that character from?
I would. That's a real collaboration. Frighteners. You talk about Frighteners. When I auditioned, I know at first my agent said that they tried to get me in on that for an audition, and they couldn't because they said I was too young. And so they kept looking, and Peter wasn't happy with anything. He wasn't finding what he was looking for, and finally they went, "Oh, okay, fine." And I came in, and actually I did everything wrong in the audition. I made choices that you do not see in that movie. And bless Peter, he saw though things that he did like, and so he kept. He gave me some direction and made some adjustments, and he saw what he wanted, and I got the part. And as far as the whole look, that's really a collaboration between Peter and I. I mean, he knew that he wanted me to have black contact lenses that just were weird, wide open, dilated, crazy man. He knew he wanted that, and I suggested the hair. And I also suggested putting something behind my ears so that once my hair was shaved, that my ears would stick out even more. So we put things behind my ears so that they would be like that, And then, of course, when you're behind me, just take them out. Who knows? So the whole look, the whole costume, everything was all their image. But I'll tell you, what was really great about Peter and his whole production staff, and this never has happened to me on any other movie that I've been on. I rip open my shirt at one point and I'm scarred and tattooed and all of that. Well, typically you show up on the day and they paste on what they've got and you go out there and shoot it, and a week before they come to me and they go with a drawing and they go, "This is what we've come up with. What do you think?" Wow. It was like, really? I am not in America here. This is really great. So that was so great because that meant I'm part of this too. They're including me. They want to know my thoughts, right? I'm the character. Maybe I'd have some. So I didn't really change very much. The only thing I did was I had them put in an unfinished game of tic-tac-toe. Yes, sir.
Talk about From Beyond. How it was compared to Re-Animator.
Yeah, From Beyond compared to Re-Animator. Can't do it. From Beyond was shot about a year maybe after Re-Animator came out. Something like that. Maybe less. Of course, it was made on the heels of the success of Re-Animator. The people that brought you Re-Animator bring you From Beyond. Tonally, it's a completely different movie, and I am in a completely different situation. Herbert West was, king of the mountain and driving the story, really being the generator of everything. And in From Beyond, in essence, I'm playing the Bruce Abbott role, the victim, the guy, the person that everything is happening to, and that's a completely different place for an actor to be. So, it was a real challenge for me to be that different from the other guy. A lot less humor in From Beyond. Stewart, I think, was a bit surprised at how Re-Animator was received as sort of a darkly hued kind of comedy, and he wanted his next movie to be thought of more seriously. So there's no humor, and there's, at least for my character, no humor and no opportunity for humor in From Beyond. The makeup was torturous for me. Bald head, thing coming out of my forehead. I counted 30 days of hideous makeup. Hated it. I remember one day we were shooting in this sound stage in my dressing room. I had to eat in my dressing room alone because if I went to the commissary with everybody else, they'd be, So, okay, fine. So I was Quasimodo. So I'm in there, I'm eating, and I remember, I feel bad about this, I really do, but I remember one day I was eating lunch and I had to go to the bathroom or something, and I stepped out in the hall and I didn't realize that they were shooting a commercial at a next sound stage, and there were all these little Italian boys and girls dressed up as mushrooms. They were on their lunch break, and they were in the hall, and a bald Satan, blood splattered thing walked out, and they all went and ran to their mothers. I know what it feels like to be ugly. That's all I can say. And I just kind of went back into my room and it was bad. It was awful. I want to get out of here. I want out of this makeup now. Nope. Yeah, hi.